Hey folks, welcome back. I'm David and we're here in my shop where I build E-War guitars. This is going to be episode number 17 of the tutorial series on how to build an electric guitar. And in this series, this is the guitar we've been working on. And in this video, we're going to cover the products I use and the process I go through in shooting on this high gloss finish. Anyway, I hope you stick around and check it out. And I hope you like it. And if you do like it, how about you give me a like and subscribe. Anyway, let's get rolling with the video. Okay, so the sanding is now complete and I'm very pleased with it. I used that Super Aslix 360 grit fabric sanding paper that I have, and it just came out really great. It just silky and smooth, and I feel no ripples or anything, and I kept going until I got rid of all those little shiny spots I was talking about, and I worked at it for quite a while afterwards. Once I got the initial sanding done, I really was very careful to hold it up to the light, go back, and I would hit those little areas to get rid of those shiny spots, because they might look insignificant now, but they will definitely show up in your clear, especially a gloss clear finish, which is what this thing is going to get. So, oh, and incidentally too, now I did everything with the 360, except for on these sharper edges, like around the binding and up here around the headstock, these sharper corners, because finish tends to not build up as much on those corners as it does on the big flat surfaces. So I did sand those down with 600 grit because I didn't want to cut all the way through the sealer and get down to the wood, which that 360 might have done. So anyway, oh, and I do have one other little spot too. Now there was a little pinhole. If you see that dark streak there, that's a natural streak in the wood. And there was a little pinhole right in the middle of that thing, right there. And the sealer just simply didn't fill it. I mean, I didn't put on enough coats to fill that one spot, because I didn't want to keep coating this thing, because the thinner this stuff is, the better. And so anyway, so after I was done, I mixed up a tiny little bit of the stuff, and I used a little screw tip, and I just dabbed it in there, and I dripped a couple drips on that thing, and it filled it up. And so I still got to sand that one spot, which we're about to do. And we're also going to then, I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean out all these screw holes in the thing, or drill holes, to get the sealer out, so I don't have such a buildup after the finish goes on that it'll be a problem later. So anyway, and so I also, while I was doing the finishing, I'd kind of taken these couple little sample boards I made, and I tried some different tints, and I thought about a little burst around the edge and stuff, and you know, I came to the determination I really can't improve on this beautiful wood with any of these dyes or anything, so we're just going to go with straight gloss on the thing. So anyway, and this is the finish we're going to use. It's Tamco's Euro Clear. This is the HC2104. Super high gloss. I've used it on several guitars. Very easy to use. It flows out real nice and easy to sand, buffs up real nice, and is a really super glossy finish. And it's a two-part urethane, so it takes this hardener, which is the HH7605, and then you reduce it with just 10% of the reducer here too. So anyway, we're going to get set up over there, and I'm going to do 2 rounds of this at first. And so the first round, I'm going to do 3 coats. The first is just going to be a tack coat and then 2 flow coats. I'll let it dry for several hours. And when I can, I'll go back with that 360 paper and I'll just scuff up the surface. I won't sand it too much. If there's any kind of little specks of dust or anything in it, I'll sand that out and get rid of any ripples or anything I might have to. And anyway, just basically scuffing it up and cleaning up the surface. And then I'll do that same thing again. And then I'll do a more detailed sanding on the thing, and I'll just kind of see where we're at, and I'll see how I feel about it, whether or not I think it's ready to go into the buffing stages, or if I should do another round on it too. So anyway, I'm going to get this camera turned down. We're going to sand up that little spot, tape up the fretboard, and get it hung up over there and start spraying. So let's get going with that right now. So the reason I'm putting that tape down is because I've got that whole back of that body completely leveled. The finish is completely leveled, and I don't want to go sanding in one little spot, which would sand basically a low spot at it. And if you put that clear gloss on there and you have a low spot in the finish, it'll show up. It'll look like a wave or something. So I'm careful to not really touch the surrounding finish around the edge. I really just wanted to get that one little blob of sealer off of there and keep it flat with the rest of the back. So now I'm just going through and I'm cleaning out the holes. Now I'm going in reverse with my drill bits as to not grab and make the holes any bigger. Of course, these I'm going down in reverse and I pull it out and forward just to suck all the stuff out of there. But I like cleaning that sealer out of these holes as I'm going, just because the sealer and the finish all together, you get all those coats in there, it really starts getting thick. And you run the chance of getting the whole thing all the way done, you're completely finished, and you're gonna start buffing and you decide to clean out those holes, and you could chip it. And if I'm gonna chip something, I'd rather chip it now before I started spraying my clears on there. So I'm just going through and I'm getting ready to spray my first round, and I mixed up my Tamco. That's a 2-to-1 mix, so I got 2 parts of the Euro Clear to 1 part of the hardener, and then it gets just 10% of the reducer. And I'm very careful about it. I mix it in that little measuring container. That's from an auto body store. And of course I filter it, putting the clear into the gun. I filter it, and I think I was set up really well. The idea is when you're spraying a round to me is, let's say, 1 tack coat, which should be a thin coat, and then 2 wet coats on top of it, given about 30 minutes in between. But for some reason, I hadn't sprayed anything in several months, and I had that gun open, way open, too wide. There must have been some trash in the gun, something, I don't know. But the finish went on way too thick, and for the first coat, and there was a bunch of junk in there too. So I was pretty disappointed this first coat I sprayed on there. I looked at it and I was just kind of disgusted. Bunch of dust and trash in there, and maybe there was something in the gun, I don't know. And there was just runs all over the thing too. So I wound up taking it down. I let it cure out for a day and sand all that first round off. And so here I'm going back and I'm actually resanded the guitar, mixing the clear again. Now this time I'm actually pouring it into the cup with a filter. So I'm double filtering it, just in case there was something coming out of one of those containers. And then I pour it through another filter into the actual gun itself. So this time I guess I took my time a little bit more. I checked the pressure very carefully in the gun. I checked all the control settings on the gun. I made sure it was toned way down, because that first coat, you really want just a tack coat. You just want to get a thin coat on there. It kind of binds to the sealer, and it gives like something sticky for your medium coats, your wet coats, to grab a hold to. So anyway, I'm a little more careful this time, and I tested the gun, and of course I shot my little test panels first to make sure the gun was spraying good, and make sure I didn't have any more junk coming out of there. And this time it went much better. I'm getting it to lay down nice, and I had it toned. I actually had it down a little bit too much. I think I turned it up a quarter turn there, just to get a little more fluid volume coming out. And so now I'm pleased. I think it's spraying really well. I got that first coat behind me, got it sanded off, and got corrected and getting rolling in the right direction. Now this is more like what a first coat should look like, the tack coat. The fluid volume is turned way down in the gun. I just have it going on real nice and even, not trying to get any build out of it, just to get a nice thin layer on there. And I'll let this set probably 15-20 minutes after this coat goes on there, and then I'll turn up the fluid in the gun a little bit for the next 2 coats. And I can't remember if I did another half a turn or 3/4 of a turn more to increase the clear coming out. But that's what you do. I kept all the other pressures the same, turned it up, and then got it to flow out much better on the second 2 coats. Now you can see here it's not terribly glossy or anything. This is just the tack coat, and it looked good. No dust, came out really nice. Now, so I set up after that, and then I was able to, like I said, raise the fluid volume a little bit in the gun, And I repeated that process 2 more times. So I put 2 more clear coats on there. These were heavier. In fact, the third and the final coat, I probably even went a little bit heavier than the second coat too, trying to get it to flow out nice. And I think it did. I think it looks good. So that's it. That's the end of the first round. I got a nice build on there. Nice, came out, not too much orange peel. It came out nice. I was quite pleased. All right, so that clear went on absolutely beautifully, I think, for the first round of it. There's still a little bit of orange peel, but nothing too bad. I got a couple little nibs in there. Little speck of dust right there. And that Tamco Euro Clear is just awesome stuff to me. I don't know if you could see that gloss in the camera there, but it's coming out very nice. It's coming out very nice. It coated really well. I don't really have any runs to speak of. I'm very happy with it. And so now this is cured out for 3 days. I think you should, if you're going to sand in between your clear coats, you ought to at least let it go for 24 hours, I would say, to let it cure out good. I think the TDS sheet says 12 hours for it to cure, but I like letting it go a little bit longer than that. In this case, I went for 3 days. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and sand this down now. And I'm going to use this Super Aslix paper. This is the same brand and same type of paper that I used on the sealer coat, but this is now a 600 grit. This is a much smoother surface than I had on the seal coat, so it's not going to take, it shouldn't take any more than 600 grit paper. And of course I'm going to use my sanding block here for the flat areas, and I'm going to use my little sanding rubber eraser here that I'm going to wrap the sandpaper around it for doing some of the contoured areas. I'm going to be very careful around the edges. I don't want to cut through this. All I'm trying to do, I'm trying to remove that orange peel and take out whatever little dust specks there may be in there or whatever. I'm going to try to get rid of that and just get it down to a nice, it'll wind up being a nice, very smooth, like a matte finish. And that should prepare it, and I'm going to then shoot 3 more coats, which is what I did on this one, by the way. I did 1 tack coat and 2 flow coats on here, and I'll do the same thing again. And we'll hit it again with some 600 grit paper, and we possibly might do a 3rd round too. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But I'm super pleased with the way it's looking right now, and it's just time to get sanding on it. Okay, so I'm going to go nice and easy. I'm going to watch what I'm doing. Going to just try to cut it down till I get. Now, can you see that line right there? Okay, that line, for whatever reason, around these edges, that finish will build up, and you could see it creates a little line right there. And same thing around that little dust speck. See, there's a line around that. What you want to do, heck, you can see it around this edge too, around that circle, if you can see that. And over here, see around that hole? That finish builds up a little bit higher on the edges, and you want to get rid of that type of thing. So you want to get rid of the orange peel, and you want to get rid of those little ridges there, like that. I like to use a circular motion. I don't have very much pressure going on here at all. I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to frequently wipe it as I'm going. Now you see it's kind of turning white, or it's getting like a white hazy. That's just you taking the gloss out and matting it down, but that will come back as soon as you spray gloss on it again. Now you can see some areas I've gotten rid of the orange peel, but I still have it in some areas, like up here, that's still pretty orange peeled. So we're going to keep working at that until it goes away. We're looking for a nice level surface on everything. Any shiny spots, gone. So you can see it right around there too. See how it left like a line around there? That's because of the extra buildup around those holes. I want to be careful. I don't want to sand through this clear coat either. I've got it on there fairly heavy, but it's definitely possible to sand through it. And if there was a color coat under this, I would be even going easier on it. So this area down here is nice. That looks good. I'm going to move on now to up here. You can see as I'm going, those lines are beginning to go away. That's getting fainter. That line around the pickup hole, just about gone. I really like this dry sanding as opposed to wet sanding. In this Super Aslix paper, it's designed for that, for dry sanding. I don't like the idea of pumping a lot of water on top of these guitars because wood and water don't go well together. Oh, you know, I can still see a little ring around that dust speck right there. So I can't say enough about that Super Aslix paper and the dry sanding system that you could do with that. I mean, I love that stuff. It's I discovered it probably a year or two ago, and I bought little sample packs that have several different grits in it. And I've just found that for the finishing of a guitar like this, that is really the way to go. No more wet sanding or anything. It's just a really good system. And if I remember, I'm going to put a link down in the description below, because I believe I know you can buy it on Amazon. That's where I bought it from. And it's just really great stuff. I highly recommend you give it a try. I think that is looking pretty good. Just looking for any last any tiny little shiny spot or anything. So I'm seeing a really nice leveled surface, no orange peel, no little halo marks around these holes. I think that looks really good for the top. Okay, now we'll move on to the sides. So on the sides, I like to use my little rubber eraser here. Just wrap the sandpaper around it. And do the same thing. So the reason you'll use something like that little rubber eraser or the sanding pads or the sanding block when you're doing this is because the softness of your fingers could push down in spots that you don't want it to push down on. Like for instance, sanding these edges, if you're using your hands, it's very likely that your finger is going to be just pushed down over the edge of the guitar or the edge of whatever you're sanding, and it will cut through that edge long before you'll sand down the bigger flat areas. So having tools like this is really the way to go. And you know, and that keeps that whole edge of that guitar, using that rubber eraser, for instance, that is a very uniform, flat across the whole width of the edge surface when you're done. And it makes a difference when you're putting on a finish, you know. So I just use that, and then I use that sanding pad too that has, it's a foam pad, that the hook and loop pad, and it just disperses the pressure from your fingers. And going over these strange contoured areas like that, it just spreads out the load, and it fits to the contour very nice, and it keeps you from sanding through on areas you don't want to sand through. Now here's something where I did use my finger. I'm right on that edge. I talked about this before, the buildup of the finish along that edge of the fingerboard. I really work hard at getting that very edge, the finish. I'm basically tapering it down to the edge of the binding, and to get rid of that, so when it's all said and done, you will never feel the difference in thickness from the binding to which won't have finish on it, to the neck that does have finish. So now here I'm taking my little Dremel tool and a piece of sandpaper. I want to get that, just like I drilled out those holes, I want to get that excess finish out from where this little medallion thing is going to lay, because it gets built up in there. all those coats I sprayed on there, the sealer, it wound up building up a thickness, and I wanted to get rid of it. So that little Dremel tool turned way down on low did the trick. So here I am, I'm ready for what wound up being the final round. I wasn't sure, but everything came out so nice. It just, the finish laid on there beautifully, and I was very happy. Got out any blemishes that were in the guitar and in the previous coats of finish, and these just went on really nice. I wound up doing 1 tack coat and 2 medium wet coats on this round too, and it came out nice. So there we go. I just finished I did 1 tack coat, and then I did 3 flow coats. And that last one looks like, man, I mean, that just looks like glass. I'll definitely have to sand it. I did get a little sag right there. Not terrible. I can get it out, but I did get a little something. But I think I'm going to stop right there too. I've got enough in the gun to do another coat if I waited 30 minutes or so, but I'm pretty pleased, and I don't want to take any chances. Sometimes it's just a good idea to stop on your head, you know? So I'm pretty pleased. I think that looks all right. I'm going to let this stay here for probably 30 minutes just to fully tack up, then I'm going to unhook it and get it out of here. And we'll go on from there. All right, folks, we better leave it there for now. I'll tell you what, I really like that Tamco clear I've been using, and I've got an order in for some of their other products too, but I'm really impressed. If y'all are thinking about trying it, you ought to give it a try because it's really good stuff. And I'm really digging the way this thing's coming out. Anyway, so I've got to let this cure out for a few days now, so if y'all come back for the next video, we're going to be dressing and finishing up the frets and other odds and ends that need to happen. And then after that, we're going to get on with the sanding and buffing of this guitar. Anyway, I hope somebody got a little something out of it. I'm enjoying the heck out of doing them, and I love the heck out of building guitars too. So anyway, y'all have a wonderful week. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one.